Hey, Archery Talk. It is Chrono Day for our 2024 hunting bow shootout. So today I'm going to test all 8 of the hunting bows through the chronograph. I'm going to use the same 2 arrows. I've got a 350 grain arrow and a 455 grain arrow. So I'm going to shoot each of those multiple times with each bow, and we're going to see where we are. The bows in order of their slowest to fastest rated speed are the Hoyt Alpha X 33 at 334 feet per second, the Bear Whitetail Maxx at 339, the Elite Ethos at 340, the Xpedition XLite 29 also at 340, the Prime RVX 34 at 342, the Bowtech Core SR at 344, the APA Black Mamba 33 at 345, and finally the Mathews Lift 29.5 at 348 feet per second. Now let's run all of these through the chronograph. I've got them all set up as close to 30 inches of draw and 70 pounds of draw weight as I possibly could. Keep in mind the Mathews has a mod on it for 29.5, so it's actually measuring in at 29 3/4, and the Bowtech is coming in a little bit longer than some of the other ones at 30 3/8 inches, so you would probably give the Mathews a few feet per second as a bonus and take away a few feet per second off the Bowtech, and everybody else is really within about a 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch of that 30-inch mark exactly. So it's time to get to the chrono. All right, everybody, the results are in. I'm going to read them to you now in the order that I shot them, which was from slowest to fastest rated speed. Please bear with me as I'm going to be looking at some notes here because I've written a lot of stuff down and I cannot remember all of it. So first up was that Hoyt Alpha X 33. And with the faster 350 grain arrow, it shot an average of 321 feet per second. And with the heavier 455 grain arrow, it shot 285 feet per second. Next up was the Bear Whitetail Maxx, which saw speeds of 334 feet per second with the lighter arrow and 296 feet per second with the heavier arrow. The Elite was up next, and we saw speeds of 325 feet per second with the lighter arrow and 290 feet per second with the heavier arrow. The Xpedition XLite 29 was much the same. We saw speeds of 326 feet per second with the lighter arrow and 291 feet per second with the heavier arrow. Up next was that Prime RVX 34, and we saw speeds of 323 feet per second with the lighter 350 grain arrow and 287 feet per second with the heavier 455 grain arrow. Up next is the Bowtech Core SR, and for this one we did things a little bit differently. We shot this in both performance and comfort modes. If you don't know, Bowtech uses what it calls a flip disc technology, so that allows you to kind of flip the mod around, it's a rotating mod, into either performance mode or comfort mode. Performance meaning it'll produce faster speeds and have a more aggressive draw cycle, and comfort obviously meaning it's going to be easier to draw and be a little bit slower. So in performance mode, we saw speeds of 341 feet per second, and with the heavier arrow, we saw 302 feet per second. Of the heavier arrow, that's the only bow we saw that break the 300 foot per second barrier. In comfort mode, the bow was still quite impressive. We saw 330 feet per second with the lighter arrow and 291 feet per second with the heavier arrow. The APA Black Mamba 33 is up next, and with the lighter arrow, we saw speeds of 328 feet per second, and with the heavier arrow, we saw speeds of 290 feet per second. The Mathews Lift 29.5 was the last bow we shot, and with that lighter arrow, it saw speeds of 330 feet per second, and the heavier arrow was in at 293 feet per second. I have just thrown way too much information at you at once, so I'm going to organize it a little bit now to make it a little bit easier to understand. And the fastest bow of the day is the Bowtech Core SR. This bow has an advertised speed of 344 feet per second, and in my testing, I got 341 feet per second. That's a difference of only 3 feet per second. That is pretty incredible. If you've followed these tests over the years, if you get anybody within 5 or 6 or 7 feet per second of their advertised speed, it is highly unusual, mostly because I'm using a peep and I'm using a D-loop, things they might not necessarily do in the actual testing for their speeds at the shop. And so this bow pretty much hit its numbers bang on. Super impressive. Do keep in mind this was the longest draw of the bunch at 30 3/8 inches, so I might knock that 341 down to 339, 338, something like that. Regardless, it is absolutely excellent speed. I think the big surprise for me is who finished number 2. And that was the Bear Whitetail Maxx. This is far and away the least expensive bow in the shootout. I would say half the price at the most of any other bow in here. It's $600 for this bow from Bear with nothing on it. Absolutely incredible. And this bow, I'm gonna look at my notes here, saw speeds of 334 feet per second. That's the second fastest of the bunch. That's only 5 feet per second under its advertised speed. Absolutely incredible. And this thing's draw was only about a 1/4 inch long. So not really anything to get taken away from that from Bear on here. Super impressed with how well this bow shot. Second overall at this price point is wild to me, and especially so close to its advertised speed. So kudos to Bear for that. Third place on our list, and I'm going to consult my notes again because my memory is not great, was the Mathews Lift 29.5 at 330 feet per second. However, that is 18 feet a second under the advertised speed. However, keep in mind the Mathews was using 29.5-inch mods. If you use 30-inch mods, you're going to bump that speed up by about 5 feet a second. So let's call that 335, which is about 13 feet a second under its advertised speed. If you go with the right mods, which I wish I had for this particular instance. Right behind that, oddly, was that Bowtech Core SR in comfort mode, of all things. So I saw speeds with that one at 330 feet per second also, tied with the Mathews. Keep in mind, again, a little bit longer. The Mathews is a little bit shorter, so that's why I'll give Mathews the slight edge. But in comfort mode, which this bow, by the way, is a treat to draw in, it's still finished basically in a tie for third. Absolutely amazing. Up next, we've got the APA at 328 feet per second. That's 17 below its advertised speed. Then the Xpedition at 326. That's 14 below its advertised speed. Followed by the Elite Ethos at 325. That's 15 under its advertised speed. Then the Prime RVX 34 at 323. That's 19 under its advertised speed. And finally, the Hoyt Alpha X 33 at 321 feet per second. That's 13 feet per second under its advertised speed. There you have it, everybody. That is the order. That's all the testing I can do as accurately as I can do it. I appreciate you guys watching. Keep an eye out for some more videos with all these bows. I'm going to do a draw cycle video in the very near future. I'll follow all that up with long-term reviews on each bow. And then finally, the 8-bow shootout, and we'll pick my favorite bow of the year. Thank you so much for watching Archery Talk. Please do like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel an awful lot, and we'll see you soon.